Guys, Phase Shifter here, and welcome to this highly accessible Radiant Paladin build in Lords of the Fallen. This build boasts of an insane amount of damage that comes via the Radiance build-up, which also results in a very cool looking smite proc that piles on even more damage. What makes this build such a great starter choice is that it also offers us tons of survivability via a careful combination of starting items which are required very early in the game via nice steady progression. This makes the build extremely inviting for new players who are perhaps looking to learn the ropes of the Souls-like genre, so whether or not you're an experienced veteran or this is your first foray into the world of pain, this is a superb choice to get you going. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. The playstyle of this build is very simple indeed. You focus on imbuing your choice of weapon with Radiant Weapon and dumping as much damage into your enemies to proc smite as possible. This is once you have possession of Pieter's sword. Before that, using the range of strong combos the starting hammer offers you is also a highly effective and viable choice. As you progress, you could use a combo of range spells that offer both sustained and burst damage capabilities that can be particularly devastating to any type of mob. Whether it be a melee enemy with a high health pool or an annoying sniper-like enemy, this build has got you covered, making it an exceptionally strong starting choice. This is further amplified by the fact that most of the enemies in the early to mid game are very susceptible to radiant damage and offer very little resistance to this damage type. The class type I would recommend for this would be the Radiant Preacher. This class starts with a flat 18 points in Radiance, and as this build relies on Radiance damage scaling and the fact that a lot of the fundamental aspects of this build have a Radiance requirement to become usable, it is an absolute no-brainer. You also start with a Catalyst that allows you to start casting Radiant spells from the beginning of your playthrough. This is the class of choice for this build. Let's start with the meat and bones of the build concerning our offensive capabilities, the weapons. At the start of the game, you begin with the Radiant Preacher Hammer. This is an absolutely fantastic weapon which I fully recommend that you keep, albeit for the reason that you would need to spend points in different attribute stats to be able to use different things, but it also scales with Radiance, our main stat, and that offers us a very powerful combination of both movesets that gives us incredible versatility and that ever-scaling damage which is so central to this build. It has an excellent 3-piece combo and the ability to break enemy attack animations. This also applies to some bosses, and I have found this to be an absolute lifesaver at many points during my early game playthrough. I also actually preferred to wield this weapon two-handed. I just found that once I imbued it with Radiance, the damage output, the moveset, and the overall aesthetic was just too much to resist. You really do feel like a paladin when you're playing this build. Once you acquire Pieter's Remembrance, you will be able to buy Pieter's sword from Mahul in Skyrest Bridge. This requires 40 Scouring Orbs, but it is absolutely worth the cost. You will acquire these organically, so my advice is to just keep playing the game, kill the bosses, enjoy yourself, soul flame memories, keep a steady flow of these appearing. Don't spend the Scouring Orbs on anything else until you have this sword. The Radiant Preacher also starts with a Catalyst that is a very strong choice indeed. It gives us access to everything we need to start this playthrough, but Agony's Light is definitely the superior choice of Catalyst here. This can be dropped by the spiky-headed mobs as a random drop. I've managed to drop 3 since I started playing, making this an easy farm target if you dedicate yourself to it. It offers 3 spell slots, radiance scaling, and superior damage multipliers compared to the others that can drop in the early days. In terms of our 3 spell slots, I will now go through things in order. First of all, we're going to start with Radiant Flare. This is our bread and butter ranged attack. It makes killing annoying range mobs easy, and also allows us to chip melee mobs down a bit before they approach us. This is the spell we start with, so there's no need to hunt for it. I do believe there's a variation to this spell that penetrates and pierces targets, which is a very appetizing upgrade, but I am yet to find this. Second spell slot, we have Radiant Weapon, the mainstay of this build as it increases the overall radiance damage of our weapon. Keep this up when in combat, it's absolutely essential to ensuring the highest damage output possible. This can be purchased from Exacta Dunmire in Skyrest Bridge and usually hangs out by the Vestige point in there when you first arrive, and later on in your playthrough he will move to his study, which is down some stairs. Our third spell is Blessed Reflections, and this is a skill that gives us that overall awesome paladin aesthetic in combination with Pieter's sword. Purchase it with Scouring Orbs from Mohul in Skyrest, and it's an absolutely savage addition to our arsenal. If you deploy this skill correctly at the right time in combination with your own melee strikes, you can absolutely melt even the tankiest of mobs. This is a real burst capability skill, and I would fully recommend using this quite sparingly against mobs that are giving you a hard time. It should also be mentioned that there are other Radiance-based skills and spells that you can use instead of this that perhaps offer you more sustain or survivability. For example, there is a healing skill that you can get from Exacta Dunmire early in the game. I haven't chosen to use that, but I can totally understand why someone would. Next, let's look at our defensive choices. First of all, the shield. You can acquire shields from Stomund in Skyrest. In my opinion, the best one to choose is the Hallowed Knight Shield. This comes with the caveat that it requires 12 strength points in order to use. In my opinion, this is absolutely worth it, as it provides you with an excellent defensive boost for minimal trade-off. There are other choices, but again, I just think that the more damage mitigation, the better in this situation. And as a starter build, it really does just allow us that nice balance between DPS and staying alive. In terms of our armor choices, there really is only one option here, and that is the Antique Hallowed Armor Set. This is an absolutely huge boost to our defensive capabilities in the early game, and is a must-have for this build. You can acquire this by heading to the Bellroom waypoint, heading right down the corridor until you come to a lake. Here, enter Umbral with your lantern, drop down into where the lake was, and head up the cave-like corridors until you encounter a moth-like creature. Run past this and the various mobs up the corridor, and you will quickly find a chest to your left containing the set. This made a massive difference to me in my first sort of early hours of the game, and I felt like a total shift happened when I got this armor and put it on. Finally, let's take a look at our jewelry, rings and neck piece. All of these are geared towards our defensive capabilities and really do make all the difference in terms of damage mitigation and sustain. The first ring that you will come across, and the first ring that I would always put on at the moment, is the Mine Owner's Ring. This gives us increased stamina and stamina regen, which means we have more damage output and can get into fights quicker once we're exhausted. What's not to like about that? This can be acquired really early in the game, and there's actually a chance you've probably missed this. I know I did on my first pass. Head to Marco the Axe's waypoint and turn right immediately, and if you run up to the dilapidated house, it will be hanging there on a body ready for you to shoot down. Second piece is the Defaced Ring. This ring increases our vitality by 3, which is a nice bonus to our overall health. It can be found on a platform that is hidden way down at the bottom in Pilgrim's Perch, and it's really, really well hidden, but well worth the reward. The Relic of Perpetuation is our neck piece, and this just gives us a nice flat increase to our health pool, which, in combination with the Defaced Ring, completes this build in terms of ensuring we have a balanced offensive and defensive capability. If you can remember where we got the Hallowed Antique Armor from the chest, this time, at the chest, turn around and there will be a flight of stairs behind you which go up to a red corridor. If you find that red corridor, you know you're heading in the right direction. Again, this can be found by entering Umbral, and as you can see on the video, you need to use the Soulflame platforms and head over to an island where there is quite a dicey little fight. I admittedly got whacked a few times here. It has one of those moth-like creatures and a lot of normal trash mobs attacking you. Once you've completed that fight, you can soulflay the statue and the item will drop. Onto the stat points. This is very simple. Take enough points in strength when the time comes to buy the Hallowed Shield and equip it, and perhaps drop a point or two into vitality as you're leveling, as this will help support your progress as the difficulty ramps up. The rest can then be dumped into Radiance, as this is the stat that scales our damage. By the time I was level 50, I was up to 49 points in Radiance. I'm going to aim for about 60, as I believe this is the point where diminishing returns kick in. In terms of how to actually progress with this build, It's pretty straightforward, and that's what makes this such a strong starter. The progression of the item acquisition supports the playstyle. There's nothing dramatic in terms of how the build changes, so this means that you hone and develop your skill within the playstyle as you progress. The progression is very simple. Keep playing with the hammer until you can afford Pieter's sword. And once you reach the bell room waypoint, be sure to seek out each of the items and spells detailed in this guide as a priority. Once you've made these acquisitions, you can slam your foot down on the accelerator and really shred through the early to mid game. I've been having an absolute blast doing so, and I'm sure you will too. So, there you have it, folks. A very accessible, insanely powerful starter paladin build for Lords of the Fallen. This will allow you to absolutely decimate the early to mid game from the off. If you have any questions or perhaps other interesting ideas that could add to this, please do sound off in the comments below. As I've previously mentioned, this is one of my first YouTube videos, so please do smash that like button and subscribe for more content of this nature. Until then, take care, be good to each other, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yes! Ooh. We got him. Jeez! That was a spicy one.